Can anyone else hear that music? It's the Dambusters! Hey guys, it's model making time, and today we're looking at the 80th anniversary Dambusters set for 617 Squadron from Airfix. This set is the brand new starter set from Airfix, the F-35, and the founding member of 617 Squadron, the Lancaster. Now, because we've already done the F-35, I'm not going to do the whole build of that one again, and we're going to focus on the Lancaster. But don't worry, this will still be an interesting video because I'm building the Lancaster in one weekend. This kit arrived for me at 3 PM one afternoon, and I was finished around the same time the next day. And yes, I did sleep normally. A few people said this probably couldn't be done, and that meant I was absolutely determined to try and do it. I have never built a Lancaster before. In fact, I've never built anything bigger than the Sergio Marchetti SM79 that I built many years ago for an article on my website. So this is my biggest kit, and to conquer the absolute fear that resides in me building these massive kits with lots of clear parts, I decided, screw it, I'm just gonna do it overnight, get this kit done, and see what happens. So lovelies, we're gonna get a look at the 617 Squadron Dambusters Lancaster, and alongside that we'll also get to see it paired up with the brand new starter set from Airfix. I mean, we've already made that, but we'll get it in the pop-off shots. Due to the unique style of this boxing, I'm not doing the history of the aircraft this time, so we'll have to build another Lancaster at some point. But today we'll be looking at the history of 617 Squadron, we'll look at the Dambusters in gaming, and then we'll have a look at the Kitstory. That's what I call the history of the kits. After that, we'll rock into the unboxing and construction of this Lancaster. If you do want to pair it with the F-35, go ahead. There are timestamps all throughout this video and the F-35 video, so you can watch the building of both of them and then watch them both pop off together. It just felt a bit redundant doing both of them in the same video when I've done it so recently. Oh, and there'll also be an article on my website about the whole boxing. But first, let's get into the history of 617 Squadron. To many people, 617 Squadron is synonymous with a 1950s film called The Dambusters. And I mean, that's for good reason. 617 Squadron came from the mission that Dambusters is about. The squadron came into existence far late in the war on the 21st of March 1943. It was a stealthy squadron originally, and it was formed in order to complete Operation Chastise, which was to destroy 3 dams in the Lvly to try and hinder the raw industrial complex. This mission is now more commonly known as the Dambusters because, well, they were blowing up dams. There were several elements that were critical to the success of the Dambusters, including the height of expertise and knowledge that was available from the pilots, navigators, and all the aircrew surrounding the squadron, but also due to the technological innovations of the bouncing bomb that was used to bounce across the water and then sink to a perfect level and explode 9 meters or 30 feet below the surface in order to impact the dam in the right way and use the water's own sheer force to collapse the dams. Now, the mission was due to go ahead in May and they didn't have much time to practice. These Lancasters were also not doing high altitude bombing. They were going low and dropping their bombs to skim across the water. This was a whole new way of flying, and it was something very unique to 617 Squadron. This was a daring mission and one that would be very costly. Now, ultimately this mission was successful, but there were losses on both sides. For the British, there were 53 airmen killed, 3 captured, and 8 aircraft destroyed. For the Germans, however, it was a combination of enslaved labourers and civilians of the Lvly. There are around 1,600 overall casualties, 1,000 of which were expected to be enslaved labourers. These were mainly coming from the Soviet Union. However, it was successful. 1 dam was slightly damaged and 2 dams were successfully sort of destroyed, and it wasn't repaired for another 6 months, so it was September of the same year before things could really go back to their same operational capacity. Now, the squadron continued to operate throughout the war and they were known for their precision bombing skills. This included over northern Italy, and there was also a plan to kill Mussolini with the squadron. However, Mussolini was killed 2 weeks prior to the mission actually going ahead. The squadron also operated the Tallboy and Grand Slam bombs, which were powerful bombs that were due to explode under the ground, known as earthquake bombs, kind of suitable for a squadron that became known for its absolute precision and daringness. Overall, throughout the war, the squadron completed 1,599 missions and had the loss of 32 aircraft. That means a total of 1/4 of the overall squad's losses was during that of the Dambusters raid. Following the war, the squadron would operate English electric Canberras, however they were disbanded in 1955. It wouldn't be until 1958 where the squadron was reformed as part of the V-Force, flying the Vulcan bomber. Just over 20 years later, on the 31st of December 1981, the squadron was disbanded once more. The Panavia Tornado, however, would be the resurrection of the squadron once again in 1983. This time, the squadron would see operation from Saudi Arabia in order to fight during the invasion of Kuwait, alongside also having operational tours in Afghanistan. And that was in 2009, so the squadron did run for quite a while with the Tornado. 4 years after their last operation in 2009, though, the squadron was disbanded in 2013, pending the arrival of the first F-35Bs. They were promised to be the first operator of the type. And if you want to go see the history of the F-35 again, check out my F-35 video. I did full construction of the new Airfix starter set and history of the F-35 as well, which I'm pretty proud of. So we're not going to have a look at the Lancaster's history, because as I say, I will save that for another video, hopefully, because one of my friends wants me to build on Lancaster soon. So instead I just thought, hey, let's have a look at the history of 617 Squadron, and I hope you've enjoyed that. It's something a little bit different, and I think it matches this set. Now in gaming, the Dambusters have had their own video games, which is kind of astounding. Outside of things say like the B-17 and Memphis Battle, there's not really been a lot of like games that are named after one particular aircraft, one particular squadron. That's not to say these are the only ones, I just think it's really a sign of how iconic this has become. And in the 1980s they had their own video game released across multiple platforms. I can't say that this game is particularly fondly remembered, and it does look relatively okay given the time and the era it was in, but it's not one I would say, unless you have, you know, a strong sense of nostalgia, you're probably bursting to get back into. Particularly when there are so many modern games that exist where you may be able to do this, even on a mobile device. Because the other main title I could see surrounding this was an iPad game that seems big enough that the Telegraph did a video on it for some reason. The game does look kind of cool. It does involve you actually bouncing the bomb, which is, you know, something that a lot of things aren't able to simulate, and it's just kind of interesting, a bit unique. Whether or not this still exists, I don't know. I don't have an iOS device. I'm sure there's probably similar things out there. It looks kind of interesting, but obviously it's way off in the realism front, I'd imagine. Talking of recreations, there's one on War Thunder that I saw, which was by Rabbit Squadron. I just came across it whilst I was doing research for this video. I thought it was a really cool cinematic done in War Thunder. I did have a look and see if there was a mission to do Dambusters. It's not one I immediately found, but this was just a cool cinematic. I'm sure if you really wanted to, you could make this mission in War Thunder, because War Thunder's mission editing tool is quite powerful. Finally, I guess you could do more of a recreational flight if you wanted to fly it in Flight Simulator. If you wanted to do it more accurate to the time, Flight Simulator 2004 did have like a time shifty feature. Questionable about how accurate that was, but it did exist. And then Flight Simulator X and Flight Simulator 2020 both will allow you to fly that route that you can just plan out yourself. Obviously, whether you want to do that in a Lancaster or not may depend which version of the game you're going to do, because the free versions are pretty much for Flight Simulator X. But if you just want to fly it in an F-35, well, you could do that in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. And I mean, that game is gorgeous. Onto the Kitstory. This is a combination of two kits. Obviously, as we've already said in this video, there is the F-35, which is Airfix's brand new starter set, literally came out like a week ago. As of recording, that's Easter 2023. Again, if you want to go see a full review of that kit, check out my other video. After this one, obviously. The Lancaster itself, though, is not new. In fact, this is from 2012 and has been in a Dambuster set before. This was originally released just as a B3 in 2012. This was then re-released as two separate variants, so the B2 in 2013 and the B1 in 2014. Then in around 2014-2015, it became part of the Battle of Britain Memorial Flight, replacing the venerable old tooling of the Lancaster that Airfix had that I would argue is not particularly fondly remembered anymore. And there was also a Bomber Command set with ground vehicles released in 2015. It saw further releases both with the Battle of Britain Memorial Flight and individually in 2018 and 2020 until we get to 2023 where it was released as the Dambusters set. Now this came in two variants. There was a version on its own and there was the set we're looking at today. The version on its own, there was a pre-order version that had a commemorative anniversary coin for the Dambusters. I didn't go for this because I thought it would be cool to get the combination set. I wasn't sure which one would arrive first, either the F-35 or the Dambusters set, and by the time the F-35 arrived I just thought, screw it, I'll just make the Lancaster. I've never made one, I don't have one in my stash, so screw it, let's just do it. Interestingly though, Airfix have released a previous Dambusters set. This was for the 60th anniversary, so this was all the way back in 2003. This set I remember seeing at Fairford for several years. If you don't know, I've been to Fairford almost every year since I was a child, and I always look for model kits when I'm there as well. In fact, it's probably one of my favourite Airfix box arts. It's just so gorgeous. Unfortunately for me though, this kit does have a 1/48 scale kit, so it's a 1/48 scale Tornado and a 1/72 scale Lancaster. For me, that's a bit of a killjoy. I don't enjoy doing two different scales if I'm doing it for a diorama or for one particular subject. However, I can see the appeal of it, particularly because next to each other they'll be similar-ish sizes, which I'm guessing was the logic behind it. However, I've got myself a 1/72 scale Tornado GR4 to do, and I may or may not have bought some decals for the anniversary 617 Squadron decals it had on it. So, video soon this year? Well, I guess that's it. We've made it to the halfway point. Make sure you're grabbing yourself a drink. Oh, would you look at that? I've got a Lancaster cup to drink out of. And whilst we're having this little break, why don't you subscribe to the channel, give me a like, and let me know down below. Would you buy a set that had the Lancaster, Tornado, and F-35? I know I would. Okay, I think it's time to get into the unboxing then. Cheers. Oh yeah, and the unboxing, maybe in a bit of a weird way, because this box is huge, bitch. Hey guys, so we're on the floor today because I don't have enough room to open this kit. So, excuse the surroundings. It's my cat's tank there that I got from Bovington Tank Museum. It's a bit chaotic, but it's the only way I can open this kit and you guys can actually see it all, so I guess let's just get into it. Okay, so we're into the 617 Squadron Dambusters 80th anniversary set. Look how cute it is. 80th anniversary is pointed everywhere over the set, and the back of the box is gorgeous, honeys. You can see they've got these maps of the bombing raids. They've got an example of how the bomb worked, a picture of the Lancaster and the F-35 and the little trolley. Then a built Lancaster and F-35 with a description of what the Dambusters was all about. And yeah, that's the box. It's really, really cute. Now we've got colour prints of how the paint scheme should look for both the Lancaster and the F-35. We're not going to look inside the F-35 today. If you need to look inside the box for that one, check out my other video. But Archie is checking it out. He's very happy with the F-35. Wants me to build another one. Not today though. Now this is the Lancaster's sprues and the F-35 at the top, and the stand as well. You do get a stand for the Lancaster separately, which I thought was really an interesting choice. I chose to build mine in wheels down though. Archie is again inspecting the parts, making sure they're all okay. You can see here the parts, the two sprues sets for the Lancasters. There's quite a lot of sprues, couldn't fit them all even on my floor with my lens that I have. But yeah, there's a lot of parts to this kit. I did try and show you some of the detail that's involved in the kit. Even though this is from 2012, so this is now 11 years old. God, I feel old. This is a beautiful, beautiful kit. I'm genuinely kind of blown away by how lovely the detailing is. It's literally the perfect level of panel lining. And I didn't take the transparency parts out for my normal transparency test because, well, there's a lot of them. And the decals here all on one sheet for the F-35 and Lancaster, but they look absolutely fantastic, as normal from Airfix. Okay, and now you've seen the unboxing, you can see that it's quite a big set. Honestly, Airfix, my cat, has loved the giant box that it came in, so thanks for that. Been playing in it all weekend. Archie is thrilled. As for me though, I spent my weekend building this Lancaster. Yeah, as I said earlier in the video, I did this in one weekend. I just said, screw it, I'm just gonna do it. I was warned against doing it in one weekend, that it would probably be quite difficult. It was difficult. I managed to also lose 2 parts, including a transparency, and yeah. However, that hasn't stopped it being a fun kit. And as well as losing parts, I made mistakes, but what modeler doesn't, right? You're not perfect all the time. Although we go to model shows and we read modelling magazines, we see all these kits that look fabulous and fantastic. And I know a lot of modelers online probably do the same, but they'll only put out the best work. For me though, I want you guys to see whatever happens, because ultimately I did this project so that I could, one, get over the absolute fear that I had about doing such a large kit, and also because I knew if I didn't just do it, I was never going to build this kit, to be perfectly honest with you. Don't we all do that? We all buy these kits, and especially larger kits, and then we just sit there for ages going, I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it, and then we don't. So what I did with this kit is I looked at what bits I really wanted to focus on. For me, that was airbrushing the outside, and part of this for me was airbrushing. I really wanted to up my technique on airbrushing, and I've never had to mask lots of details before. The interior, I wasn't really bothered about, so I knew I wasn't going to focus on that. I made mistakes during the course of my construction. I did try and follow things as much as I could. It was interesting, but you know what? I think I'm actually really happy with the end product that I've got. I haven't weathered it, I'm throwing it out there straight away, because I think I want to appreciate it just as it is for now, looking really new, like it's just been delivered. And then at some point I'll grow my weathering technique and I'll go and weather it. But I want to buy some new sets for weathering at some point, because I don't really have a lot other than just some like weathering pigments I don't actually find are that great, and I want to buy some of like those like washes or maybe some pastels and oils and try and do it that way, which right now I just don't have. So I'm laying this all out there because I know that I'm going to get comments saying you did this wrong, you did that wrong, you got this wrong, and I know I did. This isn't the perfect kit or perfect example of this kit, but it's just from me, an average model maker. So let's get into the construction. This is the most intense build I've ever done. Not because it's complicated, in fact my resin kit that I did the Mac train is probably harder, but this is just a lot of parts, a big build for me. So we're starting off with the interior. Now, as I say, I'm not going to focus on this too much. I am just sort of putting it together, and I'll paint it very, very generically and dry brush it, because I'm not that fussed about how the interior looks, to be honest. These are the 2 sort of wing struts, the center logs that you'll know of from the actual Lancaster in real life. You have to sort of climb over them if you're actually going inside one, or even in some of the cockpit replicas that I've been in. We are building the cockpit chair here as well, with the steering column in place, and then we've put the cockpit instrument panel in front of that. We've built the little mapping table as well to go next to it, and then we're moving on to putting the transparencies in place, and as I say, there are a lot of them. Now here's my first mistake that I did. I should have painted the interior of this before I put any of the transparencies in, and for the other half I did, and it looked really good. This side looked like rubbish because I was avoiding all the transparent parts, and I couldn't just do one smooth layer. I had to keep going round, and I kept going brush strokes, but ultimately you're not really going to see inside because I'm not doing it with an open door, I'm not going to do it with an open cockpit. You know, it is what it is. Now you can see how you actually have to thread the central struts through the actual fuselage, which I think is awesome. However, I did find one of mine bent really severely, and I was like, maybe it won't really matter. It kind of does. You could probably still put it together without actually assembling much more on the insides of the wings. However, I chose to just do it fully because it's there in the kit. I thought I'm going to build this sort of properly. So I think I said earlier I built a navigation table. I hadn't. This is now what we're building, and it was quite fiddly, I will say, but it did go together quite nicely in the end. It just took a little bit of time, a little bit of patience, and when it's in there, it does look quite nice. Like, you do get a really nice cockpit built out of this. It makes me want to try a bit harder next time, but to be honest, again, I was focusing on just a new airbrush that I bought, because my old airbrush, my nice airbrush, I think is dead. I did say before it was sort of an old one that I had that I'm pretty sure was quite damaged, and it does seem to have sort of, well, ceased, so I'll maybe get someone to repair it, but for now I've got a cheap Fender airbrush, and that's what I was going to use this build to test out. Now I'm putting the struts inside the two big braces, the two big timber slabs inside of the wings. These again were just a lot of holding it together, but it went together really nicely. Once that was on, you could do the top part of the wing and pop that in place. And then I decided to just sort of break with what you were meant to do and just put the whole wing together. It does say that you need to wait until you put both fuselage halves together, and I guess that's in case you need to make any adjustments. But I decided if I was going to do it, I was just going to do it all in one go, to be perfectly honest with you. So putting this together, it wasn't too hard. It was just, again, a lot of patience. It's a bigger model. Things do take a lot more time. You've got to bond a lot more plastic together than you would do on a much smaller kit, which you can generally do in literally a couple of minutes. I used a lot of tape to make sure that it went together really, really nicely, and that was something I did throughout this build. But I did find that I was never having to wait too long to do anything. I could pretty much consistently just carry on doing something. So whilst the wing was drying, I painted the interior. Now I did mix an interior green. This was the first layer, much too bright. I used some reference images from online, and yeah, I then went over it with a darker green, but I didn't want to just have you sit there watching me paint a solid green surface, so we've skipped that, and I'm now assembling the engine nacelles. And these are really cool, actually. I really liked putting these together. It's basically, I think, like 4 parts, but I didn't actually capture me filming all of it, unfortunately. So you're only going to see me really put the main 2 parts together. You do have to then put the engine exhaust covers on, and you also put like a little, I'm guessing it's an air exhaust at the bottom, or radiator maybe. I'm not too sure what part it is, so let me know if you do know. But yeah, you put them all together and then they literally just plop in place. There's a little indentation on the bottom of the wing, so you just put them into place. Really nice and simple, even though I'm botching it there. And I did actually miss putting a part in on both of the engine nacelles, so I did have to take them back off and then put them back on. But because I used Tamiya extra thin, actually really easy for me to do that, so it wasn't a big deal. Now that all the glue is mostly dry, I'm taking off the tape so that I can carry on with my construction. You can see that I put the wing on the other side, and I've slipped the other fuselage half in as well. This was then really starting to take shape, and I decided to put the tail sections in place as well. It just made sense to do it whilst everything else was drying. I wasn't really a lot else I could do until that was done. So that's just 2 parts that slip together, and then you put the vertical stabilizers on afterwards. So I did that a bit later on, once everything was sort of happy and in place. So you can see that I'm putting both of them in place, and then I'm putting the vertical stabilizers on afterwards, and they also just slip in place. Everything was so nice and simple with this kit, honestly. I'm really shocked. I thought it would be much harder, and that's why I've always been so scared of doing a big kit, but Airfix really made this nice and easy. There were a lot of gaps that I had, and I've heard from other people that the seam lines are quite bad on this kit. But as I say, I had more gaps than anything, but I think that's my error more than anything, to be perfectly honest. Again, this is like my first big kit. I was also trying to get it done in a weekend, which I know was kind of dumb, honestly, but I just had to try. So putting the undercarriage in place, I found this bit really fiddly. I think actually out of everything, this is probably the hardest part for me. So you have to put like the first like H shape strut in the front, and then you put like there's 2 branching bits that filter onto that, and they all sort of like slot in together, but I just found getting them to slot in together whilst gluing them was a bit panicky. Is that the right word? I don't know, fiddly. Either way, eventually got it, and then I did a lot of work off camera because I was quite tired. It was about 10 o'clock. I was in voice chat with a couple of friends, modelling away, and just went, I'm just gonna finish a few bits off. You didn't really miss much. The propellers are just really basic. You just, again, simple like needle pin, put them through, glue only the bits with the propellers on, and then pop the style covers on, and you're done. The prop spinner covers, sorry, on, and you're done. It's a very, very simple sort of finishing step, but I just decided, hey, I'm just going to do that off camera because I just want to get it done. Now, I am struggling, as you can see here, to mask off the windows. Now I did actually go ahead and do all of them. I didn't film that because I wanted to hold it a bit closer to my face, so we're just skipping to that here where you can see that it's all done. I've sanded it all down. It looks a bit of a mess, but once it's all primed, it will look really nice and fresh. As you can see here, it looks much better now it's been primed. You can probably see quite well where I've sanded it down. I probably should have gone and rescribed it, but hey, I'm using my new airbrush on here. So I'm going in with the brown colour first, and you can see initially it's going out quite slow, but I did then adjust it a little bit and I got a much better airflow out. Now I am again using Life Colours REF set. I say again, I don't think you've actually seen me use the REF set unless you've watched a couple of streams that I've done, but yeah, I've used this on a couple of aircraft already, so I already know how well this paint comes out, and I was just like, perfect, I don't need to buy any more paints, I can just use this, it's fantastic. So I went and did all the brown first. You're not going to see me do all of it. I don't really see the point in you watching me do all of it. You can see what I'm doing. I'm freehanding it. I am using a reference image that's just off my desk on the left. I'm just going over with really thin layers. I think I did in the end like 2 or 3 passes to get sort of the really nice overall finish, but I didn't want to go too hard, and I'll be honest with you guys, I got a really nice finish with this. This Fender airbrush, 20 quid, not bad at all. Weird using a single action airbrush rather than dual action that I've used previously, but hey, it worked for me and it was perfect. Plus I love having a massive paint cup because I could do like the whole thing. So then after I've done the brown, I went in and did the green. Initially when I saw it like this, I was like, oh my god, could you imagine it's like desert camo? Like just do a yellow sand colour instead. But obviously we are doing the Dambusters, so sort of need to go in with the dark foresty green colour that the RF use, RF dark green. And again, say same set, Life Colour. I think every single paint I used on this, bar the silver, is pretty much all Life Colour, I think, actually. Yeah, I think everything on this is Life Colour except the silver, so, you know, that says a lot about my paint choice has gone to. But yeah, so I'm doing the green again. I'm not going to show you doing all of it because, again, it's the same thing I did for the brown. I'm just filling in the gaps now rather than freehanding it. And again, I'm still using the reference image just to make sure I can make any adjustments that I may need to. And again, doing really thin layers. The green does seem to be a bit more opaque than the brown did, but I went over a couple of times just to make sure I didn't have too many sort of lines or sort of air marks on there, which I guess are like brush strokes, but sometimes you see them from where the airbrush has been, if you know what I mean, like the motion of the airbrush. I don't know, I can see it anyway. I did matte black underneath. This is from again Life Colour, but it's their essential paint range, and I love this black. It is so gorgeous. The whole underneath, in fact a lot of the side of the plane as well, will be in this colour, so I was so satisfied when I saw it coming out. I was like, oh my god, this black is everything she is giving. Beautiful, sexy, dark realness. I love it so much. Look how gorgeous that, oh, it's just got such a lovely texture to it. It's just fantastic. I'm doing the side of it here, and I've just taped off the bits of the wings so I don't get the wings black. I did need to do some touch-ups afterwards, but it wasn't anything significant. Again, I love this paint so much. The inside of the tail fins, I didn't realise were on the instructions, so I wasn't sure what colours to do them. Eventually I do go and do the black, but I think I just brush painted those, so I don't think we're going to watch me do that because that's not particularly interesting. And I did find doing the prop spinners, you can make them spin while you're painting them, which is just kind of fun. Not really a good technique, but it's fun. So I got obsessed with doing that for a while, and at one point just sat there with my brush making the prop spin, and it makes me want to do an electric one at some point, which I've seen before and they look really cool, but I do not have the expertise for that. So we then need to peel off the tape, and as I say, mostly it was fine. I did have to do a couple of touch-ups, and you can see in the centre at the back there where there should be a turret. Well, actually on this model, what I meant to say is there is not a turret, and in my head I was like, oh yeah, there'll be a turret there, I'll do that at the end. Nope, it's a solid part, so I did have to put that part in right at the end and hand paint that on. And that happened with a couple of other sections as well that I didn't realise weren't going to be just turret sections and needed other bits on as well. So, you know, that is what it is. But
It's not the end of the world, and the good thing about these paints is it's really easy to touch up with the brush and get sort of a really similar look to it. Now the decals are really easy. There's more of them than say on the F-35, but it's not so much that it's overwhelming. I did choose to leave some off. I'm going to be really honest with you. I could not be bothered to do the underside. No one's going to see it. I'm not that bothered about it, so I just chose not to. They are red decals that go on the bottom surface on the black. There's some at the back in particular that I just really thought I just don't want to do those. I wanted this to just look nice on my shelf, and so ultimately that's all I opted to do. And call me lazy, call me entitled, I don't care. I just chose to make the model the way I wanted to do it. You can see here though that I'm making a massive mistake in putting this on the wrong side, even though I looked at the instructions, put the right one off, and then just did it on the wrong side. So I had to peel it off and re-put it on the other side, which wasn't too bad, but I did break this one. Mostly put it back together, but I think I lost a little bit of the length. It's not the end of the world. And this one again, I did break it, but I managed to put it all back together. Absolutely fine. It was just a pain, and this was hard focus, but you can see me sort of prodding it around. So I did get it there in the end. I'm just putting on the rest of the decals now, and I think I did the same thing again. Yeah, I did. So that again is the wrong way around, so I'm going to have to flip that, which you can see is why I'm sort of trying to get it up now, because I've realised, oh dear, that's the wrong way around. I was very good at doing that, to be perfectly honest. But yeah, never mind. I did fix them all in the end. It was a bit of a pain, but you know, it's worth doing. There's pretty much the same decals that go underneath now. This is again just to show where you should be walking on the aircraft. Really like these decals, they stand out so well, and it really helped bring the aircraft to life. I probably could have gone in with some sort of panel lining, but I didn't want to. I have some really old stuff I don't feel super confident with, so I just decided to leave it as it is. I put the side decals on. I messed a couple of these up. I ripped a couple of them. They seemed really fragile. I don't know, just seemed quite thin. I'm not really sure why, but it's the same as with the F-35 starter set. There's a lot of the bits where you'd expect there to be a central clear part to hold it all together, but there just isn't. So these fell apart quite easily, but in the end it wasn't too bad, and again just repeated it on the other side, and then I did all the turrets off screen because, well, I mean, they're quite simple to put together, and it was done.
Okay, so you've seen the mistakes I've made. Yeah, I lost a clear part, I managed to fog up some of the windows, and I managed to get glue on the main transparency. What the actual... But I finished the kit, and I'm proud of it. I don't care that it's got a couple of errors on it that are really visible, because I conquered my absolute fear. And you know what? That is something to be celebrated. Plus I got quite a big kit out of my stash, I'm not gonna lie. As I said, this isn't super weathered. That is something I'm gonna do somewhere down the line. And it's my first ever really big kit, so I'm gonna be nice to myself about it. So without further hesitation, let's go and have a look at this Aguado Lancaster from 617 Squadron Popping Off.
When I look at you like that, you lose it completely, losing track of space and time. I don't wanna go home looking for a reason to stay here all night. I wonder, do you feel it too? Magic between me and you, the way that you make me feel. You wonder if I feel the same, the blood's rushing through your veins, and then when I say your name, bet I'm everything you see, bet I'm everything you need. We're high on this feeling, don't wanna come down, just go on and tell me, get into my eyes, I'm everything you need, I'm everything you need.
I know, it's not my best work by any stretch. However, can I just say, cheapy little finger airbrush, slay, especially with this giant paint container. Like, this paint pot is huge compared to what I was used to on my Highlander and Steinbeck, and it really did a great job. Obviously I don't fill it all the way up. I did what I thought I would need, and generally it was almost always enough. You can definitely do a whole aircraft, like one colour if you needed to, you know, like all of the green parts of the camo, all the brown parts, just with one bit. It was only the black where I really had to refill that much, and I mean, that's understandable. As I said before as well, I'm just happy that I didn't give in to the fact that I screwed something up. It's so easy when you do a model kit and you do something wrong, you're like, oh god, this is ruined, it's awful, I hate it. It's not. It's probably fine. And besides, who are you building this for? Are you building it for you, or are you building it for, like, everyone else? I guess, however, we should talk about whether you should buy or fly away from this kit. This is a really interesting one. Because it's sold as a single one as well, and it's the F-35 on its own, it's hard to say. If you have neither kit, this is a perfect example. But if you're a newcomer, I probably recommend the Spitfire and F-35 starter set, purely because it's 2 starter sets together, which I think is kind of actually genius. If you're a bit more advanced though, and you've never built a Lancaster before like me, then this might be a really good one for you. If you haven't got either of the kits, this is obviously a really good set. I think the artwork is gorgeous. I think the set itself is quite good value for money. You do get paints included, the Humbrol paints in the little pots that I do not trust at all, but the brushes included are very good. I use them throughout this build, but the kits themselves are amazing. I mean, part of the reason I didn't cancel this order was because the F-35 itself was such a bloody good kit that I was happy to have another one. And I mean, I get to do a Lancaster in 617 Squadron mappings, like, hello. I don't know, it's quite hard to say. I guess I would say buy, because there's nothing stopping you buying a set. It's, and I guess it's like any kit, you're only gonna buy it if you're interested in it, if you don't have it already. So yeah, I'm saying buy. I don't know why I'm finding it so hard to say buy this kit. I think it's because it's like 2 kits together, and it's really hard to recommend a gift set because so many people will have bought the F-35 on its own, or they already have a Lancaster, and the Dambusters Lancaster has been out before. This is a reissue of that, just in a set together, or it's the new boxing. But if you don't have either, this is fantastic. If you have the F-35, may still be a fantastic offer for you. I mean, if you want another one like me. Well guys, I think that's it. Thank you so much for joining me on this wild weekend. I cannot believe that I spent a whole weekend building one model kit and it was a bloody Lancaster. What the actual hell? If you want to support the channel, there are a multitude of ways for you to do so. You can leave a super chat on this video, you can become a channel member, or you can support me over on Ko-fi as well. On Ko-fi you can also do a one-off donation if that's more your thing. Remember what I always say though, only support the channel if it's financially viable for you to do so. I'm going to be here making kits and videos for you guys anyway. Thank you so much for joining me. This has been a wild ride, but I've enjoyed it so much. Now I'm going to go back to something a bit smaller and more manageable for the next video. And I'll see you then. Thank you so much. Bye!
Thank you to all of my channel members. You really help keep the channel going. Advanced kits do get a shout out, so we've got Sophie, Mrs. Time Lord, Iron Duke, 50s Bin Man, Crazy Loacher, and Explosive Water. Thank you so much for all helping to support the channel and make sure that I can buy new paints, which I've been doing so to invest back in the channel. You guys are absolutely amazing. And I don't care what level you are, you guys rock. If you enjoyed this video, as I say, make sure you hit that subscribe button, and there's a recommended video here that I think you should check out. Ooh, it's been chosen specially for you. Right, you hit the link, I'll grab the snacks, let's go watch this video together.